Matzah. Okay, get ready to dive deep because today we're exploring a radical idea. Buckle up, listener, because we are talking about the possibility of land itself being barren or fertile. Intrigued? We're going deep into the work of Dr. Khalid Walid, specifically his analysis of barren and sterile in religious texts. Trust me, this isn't your average vocabulary lesson.
You're right to be intrigued. It's about uncovering those hidden layers of meaning, especially in texts that have been studied and interpreted for centuries.
Exactly. Our guide for today's deep dive is Dr. Walid and his work, Pasted Text. He pulls from both the Quran and the Bible, finding some seriously interesting connections to these ideas of barren and sterile. And here's where it gets really wild. He links these terms to the spiritual state of certain groups and even entire regions. Specifically, he points to the children of Israel.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? This idea of connecting a medical term like barren to something spiritual might seem odd at first. But when you think about it, ancient texts were incredibly layered, especially when dealing with vital themes like faith and lineage.
So we're not just talking about physical barrenness, we're talking about a spiritual drought of sorts. Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Absolutely. Dr. Walid emphasizes understanding the historical and linguistic context of these texts to truly grasp their depth. He's not just defining words, he's painting a picture of a spiritual landscape.
Okay, I'm hooked. So tell me, as Dr. Khalid Walid, I feel like I need to know more about the mind behind this.
He's a scholar who dives headfirst into religious texts and interpretations, often uncovering unexpected connections. In fact, he has another book called Immortal Thoughts and Newborn Pen that you, dear listener, might find fascinating. But let's get back to the heart of our deep dive today. Pasted text.
Right back to it. Now, Dr. Walid really dissects the meaning of barren, or akir, as it appears in the Quran. He compares it to fertile land lacking water. There's potential for growth, but there's something holding it back, like a seed just waiting for the right conditions to sprout.
And that's a critical point. He doesn't see barrenness as a permanent condition, but rather a blockage. This blockage can be lifted, often through divine intervention. Think of it as a temporary spiritual drought that can be alleviated by the rains of divine mercy.
And he uses the example of Prophet Zechariah and his wife, right, to illustrate how this barrenness can be overcome. For a listener who might not be familiar, Zechariah is a prophet in both the Christian and Islamic traditions.
Exactly. They desperately desired children, but his wife was barren. But then, through divine intervention, they were blessed with a son, John the Baptist, a key figure in both faiths. The Quran even speaks directly to this, saying, "Indeed, Allah gives you good tidings of John," confirming a word from Allah.
Wow, that's powerful. So it's not just about infertility, it's about a state of being cut off from a flow of divine blessing.
You've got it. And this is where Dr. Walid's interpretation gets really interesting. He takes this concept of barrenness and applies it to specific groups and places. He suggests that certain communities, like the Magog, who he links to the descendants of Israel, might be experiencing this kind of spiritual barrenness, a disconnect from God's mercy. And it's a consequence of their actions and choices, not a permanent condition.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that their choices could actually influence the spiritual state of an entire community? That's intense. Tell me more about that. What kind of actions is he talking about?
Yeah. He points to their turning away from God, their choice to worship false idols, and their perpetuation of injustice. It's like they've chosen a spiritual desert over a wellspring of living water. Dr. Walid even quotes a verse from Jeremiah that speaks to this. "My people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water."
So he's drawing a parallel between this spiritual state and the physical act of abandoning a source of life-giving water for something that's, well, broken.
Precisely. And this concept of a broken cistern ties directly into his analysis of sterile, or akwim. Remember how we were talking about barrenness as a temporary blockage? Well, Dr. Walid distinguishes sterile as a more complete cessation, something that's reached a point of finality.
Okay, so if barren is like a dry spell, sterile is more like hitting a dead end.
That's a good way to put it. And this is where Dr. Walid's analysis gets really thought-provoking. He doesn't just limit sterile to individuals. He applies it to entire regions, specifically Baka, Jerusalem. He suggests that because of the actions of the Gog, whom he also connects to the children of Israel, this region has entered a state of spiritual sterility, incapable of nurturing spiritual growth.
Hold on, he's connecting this idea of a broken cistern, a state of sterility, to an actual physical location, Baka, Jerusalem.
Exactly. He even compares it to a sterile womb, unable to nurture new life. But here's where it gets even more complex. He doesn't see this sterility as irreversible. It's more like a seed lying dormant in the ground. It has the potential for life, but needs the right conditions to sprout.
So there's a glimmer of hope. Tell me more about these conditions he's talking about. He believes the key lies in the departure of the Gog and a return to righteousness. Their presence is like a blockage, preventing the flow of divine light and energy.
Okay, this is where I need a little help. You're using the term divine light. What does that actually mean in this context?
It's a multifaceted concept, but essentially Dr. Walid seems to be suggesting that the actions of the Gog have created a spiritual imbalance. Their transgressions have dimmed the spiritual light of Baka Jerusalem, hindering its ability to be a source of spiritual nourishment and growth.
So it's not just about the physical land itself, but its spiritual energy being depleted, kind of like a battery that's been completely drained. Yeah, you put it that way. But remember, just as a battery can be recharged, Dr. Walid argues that Baka Jerusalem can be revitalized. It's about removing the obstacles, in this case the Gog and their negative influence, and creating the right conditions for spiritual renewal.
That's a powerful image. But I have to ask, how literal are we supposed to take this? Are we talking about a physical departure, or is there a deeper, more symbolic meaning at play here?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one that leads us to an even bigger question. If these interpretations hold weight, what does this mean for us today?
That's the big question, isn't it? We've gone from talking about barren and sterile in a medical sense to a spiritual sense, and now we're talking about entire geographic regions. It's like we zoomed out from a single seed to a whole landscape.
Oh, and that's precisely what makes Dr. Walid's work so compelling. He's asking us to consider how these ancient interpretations might offer insight into contemporary issues, particularly those playing out in these very locations. It's like holding an ancient map up to our modern world and finding surprising correlations.
Okay, I'm game. So let's say, for argument's sake, that Dr. Walid is onto something. What would that mean for us? How are we supposed to apply this to our lives?
Well, I don't think it's about taking his interpretations literally, but rather using them as a lens to view the world around us. It's about asking ourselves, what can we learn from this?
So more about introspection than instruction.
Exactly. Dr. Walid isn't handing down a set of rules. He's prompting us to consider how our actions, both individually and collectively, might be contributing to harmony or disharmony in the world. Are we nurturing the ground for spiritual growth? Or are we, in a sense, contributing to barrenness or sterility?
It's like that saying, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. We have a responsibility to consider the impact of our choices, not just on ourselves, but on the world around us.
Precisely. And perhaps by understanding these ancient concepts, by looking at the world through this lens of spiritual ecology, we could begin to make more conscious choices that contribute to healing and growth.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. We started with these seemingly simple terms, barren and sterile, and uncovered layers upon layers of meaning. It's incredible how much wisdom is embedded in these ancient texts, just waiting to be unpacked and explored.
It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, always a deeper dive to be taken.
Absolutely. And on that note, a huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this journey. We hope this has sparked your curiosity and giving you something to reflect on. Until next time, keep those minds engaged, and remember, there's a whole world of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.